So today let's talk about Yubin, right? So
Yay.
if we go towards his page right here, we can see all his stats and whatnot, and what you would usually build on him. But let's go talk about his skills real quick and why he's such a good awakening in it, in a sense, in the defender role. So
Right.
in my opinion, even if he is a defender, or let's say if it was a striker, it doesn't mean necessarily that they're resorted as a tank type character. I think Yubin is more of an offensive defender than anything. He's more of a DPS type defender with a little bit more tankier stats. I think that's my take on him, as he has more evasion than defense. He's more like a striker type, but as a defender.
Yes, I actually very much agree on that. Oh, by the way, guys, if you don't know who I am, my name is CymenSniped. I'm actually also another YouTube content creator as well. So thank you, Arisante, for inviting me over to talk about Yubin. Yay. All right. So then I'm done with the introduction. I very much agree with what Arisante said. Right. The reason's because let's just take a very typical example of a defender tank, which is Awakened Hilt, which by default her base stats can go up to 2,982 defense. If let's say you don't do anything on her, right? So in comparison with Nayubin, clearly there's a very big difference in defensive stats. However, Nayubin has very much a lot of evasion. Depending on how you gear him, he can definitely go above 2,000 evasion, which is insane. So I do very much agree that he's a very offensive tank.
Yep. And in terms of abilities and whatnot, Hilda is very much supportive of her team, giving everyone shields and giving herself a shield so she stays alive a lot longer with a lot more damage reduction, as well as damage taken reduction as well. While
Yeah.
Yubin has more of an offensive take with his skill set. So if we start out with his skills, obviously if your standard basic attacks, he has more of an AoE attack. So AoE damage res from the operators will actually reduce the damage on his basic attacks, rather than single target. But the main thing that we want to look towards here is his passive. This is his bread and butter skill that activates pretty much every so often, and it's very consistent. It will always pretty much proc, and it's very offensive in the sense that while Hilda gives you a shield, Nayuban actually cancels pretty much every shield on deployment when he enters the battlefield, and after every 12 incoming damage. So basically, with his passive, whenever there is a tower unit on the field, he will burn them until they die. So tower units are he's a very good anti-tower unit, as whenever he's on the field, they pretty much just slowly die. Pretty fast, 4% in Gauntlet, so that's about, how long is that? 25 seconds.
Yeah, if it's 4% per second, then it's going to be 25 seconds and they're gone.
Yeah, and that's almost like only 2 skill usages out of the towers for maybe like 4 to 5 costs. It's a very strong passive in the sense that it pretty much
Exactly.
disables towers from the whole week that Even's available.
Exactly. It makes it even more cancerous when you level this skill until level 5. All enemy unit skill haste is reduced by 30%. Basically, just nullify every single unit's skill, what do you call it? Every single unit's cooldown reduction set bonus outside of the skill haste substat that it actually has.
Yep. And with that pretty much kind of counters more skill-based usages on Nayubin weeks where attack speed would actually benefit a lot more. So with Gayun, personally, I love running attack speed on her, simply because she does more DPS consistently that way, and it's more of a frontline killer rather than rushing her ult to kill the backline. With Nayubin, he pretty much kind of counters the sense that Gayun can't really ult as much, and with attack speed, you get special cooldown every 3 attacks or so, and with attack speed Gayun, I think it's a better choice to use her with that rather than CDR to deal with Nayubins.
That's true. And it also gets you thinking that because if you run enemies on cooldown, if you run teams with attack speed, technically you also trigger Yubin's passive quicker, right? More frequently, because every 12 incoming damage, basically he just does the barrier reflux.
Yep. And whenever he does use his barrier reflux attack, he pretty much just dashes a minuscule amount forward, which can definitely put himself behind the enemy, so sandwiching the tank in a sense, and
Yeah.
putting his allies a little bit far away from the AoE damage that happens. And it's really strong. I think that's his pretty much best part of his skill set, simply because he can do a lot. He can rush into the backline, kind of like Ryan Ferrier. He can kind of move around the backline very easily this way. I've definitely seen a lot of games where now Yubin has been in the backline while the enemy tanks are on your backline, but they can't really do anything without the DPS. And now Yubin can actually do something to the backline because he's a very strong damage unit. So other than that, we also have his special skill. This is probably his second best skill, as every time he uses barrier reflux, the cooldown on this skill gets reduced by 3 seconds. So he very much uses this constantly, and it's a very strong skill, simply because not only will he make them lose 15% attack speed for 8 seconds, he pretty much CCs them. He knocks them up for like a solid 2 seconds, pretty much disrupts whatever they're doing. And it's really nice whenever you cancel other not even skills, or just in general other people's special skills whenever it does happen. Other than that, we also have his ulti, and his ultimate Wings of Destruction is a very nice tool. It is a 4-part attack. He swipes in the front, back, and then does another empowered strike to the front, and then blasts it with his Pulse Blaster, which has a very thick beam, so I believe it can hit air units as well. And it will basically make the damaged targets lose 15% of their attack permanently while they are on the field. And whenever this does pop off, this makes it so that the opponent pretty much has to deploy a new strategy against them, which is the redeploy strat. With Lin Jin this week, it is a lot easier. From what I've played, redeploying is a very key part of PvP this week, and against not Yubin. So as you can see, his set is very offensive, in the sense that he can actually kill the enemy, and he's very tanky with how you build him, because he doesn't need skill haste, simply because his special skill just gets it reduced on the enemy's attacks and not his own. So he doesn't need attack speed, he doesn't need skill haste, you can just build him tanky.
And at the same time, even though you build him tanky, he's still going to top the DPS charts in every single gauntlet fight, which is a very common occurrence.
Yep. And most of his damage, if they do have a shield and he cancels all those barriers, that barrier cancellation is counted towards his damage charts. So in a sense, it's kind of false, but at the same time, you are technically doing all that barrier damage. So a lot of people I've seen have been complaining about now Yubin, in the sense that he is not as tanky, or he dies too fast, or that he's not a very good unit, or he's like a bait unit. In my opinion, as we said, he's a very much a DPS unit, and you need to have actual good gear on him for him to survive. Kind of like Lee Yumi. Lee Yumi's very squishy, if you think about it, unless you actually have good gear on her. He's pretty much in the same boat, where he is a evasion tank. He has a lot of evasion, a lot of base evasion, and with the gear you run on him, you can get ground damage res and some crit damage res on him. And if you had Hummingbird, which is the best set for him, you would have even more damage taken and more ground damage res, or more crit damage res, my bad. So you would have like around 70% crit damage res as well. So he's a very tanky unit if you actually build him this way.
Yeah. But he's more of a nuisance in PvP at the moment because he just deals so much damage disrupting the backline. The only way to deal with him is also because he's a tank, right? He's a defender class. Basically means strikers don't do any bonus damage against him. So people will have to rely a lot on Ranger to actually burst him down. But at the same time, he gets so up close and personal with them. The Rangers basically just get knocked up very often and they don't really do much. So I think that's the real problem that Yubin can bring to the table in most PvP gauntlet matches.
And definitely within the season rules right here, the courageous season, with all units getting more attack speed, this actually does help a little bit on killing not Yubin. So don't really say that he's weak. This is just pretty much the best way to counter him, which is pretty much using attack speed. And that would be, you know, admin rangers, Gaiun attack speed, Kyle, etc., etc. If you just run high attack speed, you would basically be able to kill him pretty fast, but you need your rangers to survive that way.
Yeah. Which also opens another whole room of problem, right? Like, if you focus so much on rangers, if the enemy team who's smart enough to play Yubin with some form of striker or some form of sniper at the backline, like Adele or Sanae, the backline is just gonna die because you're gonna end up with so many rangers. They just don't really do much else against other strikers other than Yubin.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely happening a lot in Platinum, though. I'm not too sure about what's happening at the very top.
At the very top, it's a very interesting meta. There's one meta where is the one I'm using. It is the G Armor Nayubin Sylvia meta, where you lead Sylvia and use Olivia Park, as you can see right here. And basically, you kind of stall until you're able to kill the enemy Nayubin, in a sense. It's pretty much just stacking until you're able to kill. Another thing I forgot to mention is that he can also attack air units as a defender, so he is one of the only defenders right now that can do that. And it's very strong, as you can kill air type units, whether it be Rosaria or the Phoenix that Yuna has.
Maybe we can talk about what's he gonna do in the what do you call it, strategy battle, because it's definitely gonna happen. And strategy battle is not gonna be affected by any form of ban setups, right? So we're gonna see a lot of it. Although, of course, I believe most strategy battle players, we technically refresh until we find somebody that we can usually snipe. But if, let's say, you arrive at like an option of 3 enemies and all of them have Nayubin, what do you think that it's going to be like? Because I'm very sure they're going to pair things up with somebody extremely tanky like Awakened Hilt. So Awakened Hilt Nayubin is going to be a lot of a problem, isn't it?
Yeah, in a sense, definitely. I think even though Hilda's is non-cancelable, now Yubin can actually cancel Sigma's and Awaken Hilda's shield every time Awaken Reflux does come out, which is very interesting. Because I guess he himself is an Awaken unit. As you can see, our attack speed does do a little bit of damage towards now Yubin, and every time he receives damage, he is activating his Reflux right here. But he is very, very tanky with the evasion stat. Yeah. This was like a 16k CP person using Soldier Team, and it definitely would have worked well, I think. But aside from that, I think Na Yubin in strategy battles very, very strong, considering that I've definitely had times where I've had people tell me that he himself can pretty much deal against Awaken Hilda and Awaken Yuna at the same time without dying, in a sense. It's very interesting.
It is.
It's another 15k player. But yeah, it's interesting. So I think if you run Nayubin in your strategy box when you're defending or when you're attacking, I think most of the time you will win simply because he is a very, very strong Awaken unit.
Theoretically speaking, I think I would pair Nayubin with... Definitely I'm going to pair him with Awakened Hilt, because it just makes things so much tankier, and because he's such an offensive frontline tank as well, things just die really quickly, right? His knockup basically is a mini CC, and then he reduces attack at the same time. He also reduces, what do you call that? Attack speed as well. So something bulky at the front, and then 1 or 2 DPS at the back is just going to delete stuff at the front line.
Yep.
Look at you going.
Yeah, definitely I think pairing him with another frontline is definitely the best idea. Like, rather, if you have another striker like Twins or Old Admin, Swordsman, or if you have another tank like Lee Yumi, definitely mitigating the damage that he can take is very strong, as he's not pretty much the only tank that he you use, basically, in a sense. So, moving on to ranked battles, this is my box that I'm going to be using. I lead Sylvia for Olivia Operator, and now Yubin's going to be my main tank that pops out. He's my main goal whenever I'm trying to cycle out units. And I have 2 supports, so I can keep supporting Yubin. Another defender as the frontline I have mentioned, and some rangers to deal with him as well. And I also have Linjin for rotating purposes. Now, if we go towards the gear after I pull this guy up. I definitely think that this is one of the boxes that people should run when they're playing Yubin. But I think there are other boxes where they use Enterprise and they use some other operators like Sigma, which is a very good counter to this camping type of box in the sense where they rush you. And it's very strong against Sylvia lead in a sense, because Yubin can get in there very, very fast.
How about the sorry to interrupt you. How about the type of ship do you think you'll be paired with now, Yubin? Because I can see a few pretty decent ones. Gleipnir Pod is one. Defensive ships like Lake Superior is gonna be awesome, and one more interesting pick would be Gleipnir Pod, isn't it? Because it's an evasion ship.
Yeah, definitely. Lake Superior, obviously, as everyone knows, reduces damage on pretty much every unit, so it's very, very strong in a sense. It also gives him a shield and a lot more utility in getting the backline units towards him. Enterprise is another decent ship simply because it does pull everyone together or knocks everyone to the back together so that he can get more of his AoE attacks off. Gleipnir Pod's an interesting evasion ship, but again, I think it's pretty much still only useful if you have Amina, as that is pretty much her ship. The attack speed slow is good, but at the same time you kind of want the attack speed on Yubin so he can keep using his reflux more consistently, as that is his bread and butter. And Gleipnir armor type is a very good ship simply because it just gives him a lot more damage taken reduction, as well as a nice get out of jail free card with the ultimate. And so with that, that concludes the first episode of Let's Talk About Not Even. If you guys enjoyed this informative part of it, please like, subscribe, dislike if you want, and share the videos with your friends. And the second part of the video is going to be pretty much all PvPing, limit testing Not Even, and explaining how to play him in a sense. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys later.